What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the EPM Show. This is all things enterprise performance management, and we're here to give you an unfair career advantage. Today's episode is with Chad Brophy. He is the head of global sales at Pigment. He's a proven sales leader. He spent time at Tableau, Alteryx, and Mapbox. He joins me today, and we get his take on the EPM industry and how to build an impactful career. He has his 5 N's, that's IN, 5 N's for being an impactful leader. I'm not going to spoil those for you, but they're really good. And he talks about the importance of self-awareness, knowing thyself, and why that's essential for making the most out of your career and maximizing your impact in your organization. He also shares his thought process for how he evaluates taking career risks and new opportunities. Y'all, this is first-hand insight from an executive, a global sales executive, on his process for evaluating new job opportunities. And it's counterintuitive to what a lot of other people think. So I was glad that he shared it. I think it'll be super valuable for you. And then lastly, he talks about what has him fired up for what's going on with Pigment and their journey and how their platform is making an impact in the EPM industry. I hope you get a ton of value out of this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Check it out. Chad, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Chad. Thank you for having me today. Good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, man, we're pumped to have you. Excited for this episode and the energy that you bring. So I'll hit you with our patented question to start out, Chad. Give me kind of your career flyover in 60 seconds.
Career salesperson. So I've been in technology sales for the better part of 25 years. I've done every type of sales job there is. And so started in inside sales, customer success, renewals, BDR, SDR, field sales, you name it. Leadership for the better part of 15-ish years. And so my focus has historically been in startups. And so I love the ability to come in, create, have impact. And then I've also been focused on data analytics. And so whether that was just serendipitous timing of me or intentional, it was not intentional, but a career in data and analytics has been a passion of mine. And so I've found myself in EPM, which it's a tight cousin to data analytics in a lot of different ways. I work for companies like Alteryx, like Tableau, Web Methods, Actuate. So a list of companies in the BI data analytics space.
Awesome. And tell me where you're located.
I'm in Northern Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C. So I'm actually native. And so, in fact, part of my career, I spent selling to the government, a large part of my career. And so in this market, you either work for the government, contract to the government, or sell to the government. And I chose the latter. And it's just kind of, it is what it is. And so it's been fun to see government entities embrace and buy into data and analytics, EPM as well. And then it's been equally fun to get outside of that space, move a little faster and get a little bit more innovative and move into the commercial enterprise space.
That's awesome. You said data analytics has been a passion of yours. I'm curious as to what's cultivated that passion for you over the years.
Good question. I think I'm curious and I'm a learner. And what I've noticed in this field, and it's the same thing with EPM, by the way, is the ability to go into an organization and learn the inner workings of how they operate and how they think. And I think that data analytics, EPM affords you the ability as somebody in this career to go have a conversation today with somebody in finance, with somebody in supply chain, marketing, IT, HR, security, you name it. And so I like to think of it as a mini MBA, a real world MBA in terms of, what these companies are doing and how they're thinking about solving problems, how they take data, turn it into information to, make better informed decisions. And so for me, just as somebody that's naturally curious, like that's just been an accelerant into learning.
That's such a good point. The data analytics is the foundation of the decisions that companies make. So if you want that, like you said, real world MBA, understand how companies make decisions and kind of what drives those. I can see the passion. So I've got one more fun personal question. Chad, if you could live anywhere else, where would it be and why?
You know what question I thought you were going to ask me as I look at your NC State thing in the background is how bad Virginia Tech is going to beat NC State this November. I thought that was the question, but
Fair.
maybe we can go offline on that one.
Okay, yeah, fair.
If I could live anywhere else, I'm going to go two extremes here. I'm not going to give you one answer. I'm going to be somewhat politically correct. I would live in a beach town in maybe Europe. And so maybe Portugal, maybe Spain. And then I would live in a mountain town. Probably I love Colorado. I absolutely love getting out there every year. I'm a big snowboarder and, time on the mountain is peaceful. Those are my two answers.
So I have only been snowboarding one time.
Yep.
And I grew up being down in the South. I grew up on a wakeboard. So that was like
Yep.
my most equivalent
Yep.
to snowboarding. But the one time I did snowboard, I hit a tree and all the snow fell on me and I didn't get hurt, but that was not fun. So
Yeah. That's a good way to not get back on a board again, quite
it
honestly.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was. And so now I stick to wake surfing because I just don't, I don't take bad falls anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now is wake surfing where you're immediately behind the boat, like riding the wave, or are you a little
Yeah.
further? It's different than wakeboarding,
It's different
correct?
than wakeboarding. You're right behind the boat. So it's usually only going about 9, 10 miles an hour, creating a really big wake. And then
Yeah.
once you get really comfortable, you start on a rope because that's how they have to get you up.
Yep.
But then once you get comfortable, you actually just throw the rope back into the boat and you're just actually surfing the wake and
Right.
you're trying to stay on it. It's a ton of fun, man. It's a
Yeah.
blast. You can do it for a long time.
And I will tell you, and I don't know how you are, but for me personally, whether it be skateboarding or snowboarding, or in this case, wake surfing, wakeboarding, in that moment, you're not thinking about EPM or forecasts or whatever. You're just, how do I not hit a tree and have snow fall on me? Or how do I not land back on this boat or whatever the thing might be? And so I think that that's the best escape, at least for me. And trust me,
That's
I like sitting on the beach as much as the next person, but you just work kind of happens.
No, that's awesome. Well, hey, Sean, let's jump in because I want to hear some of your thoughts on just
Yep.
your approach to leadership. And I know you're relatively new to the EPM space, but like you said, it translates really well and it's a tight cousin, if you will, to data analytics. So talk to me about how you've approached the transition into a new industry and what has you excited right now about everything that you're learning in EPM specifically.
So transition wise, I think, and this will be a theme and part of the conversation is not being naturally curious. And so I think for me, drawing on experiences of the past. And so taking what I know about the data and analytics space and applying that to the EPM space has been somewhat natural, and it's reduced the ramp time, if you will. And so, like you said, they're kind of close cousins. And so transition has been fast, I would assume. My team might tell you differently, but I think from my perspective, it's been somewhat fast. I here's kind of what I've been trying to do is read as much from our customer wins in terms of why they buy Pigment, what's the business impact they're looking to achieve, what are the problems they're trying to solve. And so taking that knowledge and now thinking through the conversations we're about to have has been extremely helpful for me. And so the ramp time has been reduced for those purposes, or for those reasons, I should say. And so I think drawing on data and analytics, it's a natural correlation to take something broad and apply it now to something more specific, in this case, EPM. And so it's been somewhat smooth, I would say.
This is obviously a career focused show. And so one thing I'm hearing you say is that skills compound and learning compounds. You're able to bring in insights and experience and then learn like you said, the customer through kind of understanding the impacts that y'all have been able to have on customers and success stories and why they buy Pigment and the impact that they're looking for. I love that you focus on impact. That's one of the things I think has been a common theme that we've seen from Pigment is just your focus on impact to the customer, right? You
Correct.
want them to adopt the product, pull instead of push because they're seeing impact. They're seeing kind of fruit from the investment, from the labor, from the learning. That's awesome. I know you're leading enterprise sales at Pigment. You like that opportunity to come in and create impact and create it quickly. What's been your approach to leading enterprise sales at Pigment with your team and with clients?
Sure. And maybe before I do that, I'll just kind of riff a little bit on impact. And so that, by the way, is a huge attraction for me personally in the startup world. And I think that, impact takes many forms and comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. And so what's important for me is impact both for the organization, inside the organization and outside the organization. And so if I think about impact, it's, for the company and for Pigment itself, it's the ability to have a point of view, come in with my background and what I bring to the table and my experiences, and try to have an impact on the company itself as we look to go from where we are to where we want to be, impact on the individuals in the company. And so there's nothing more fulfilling than forming relationships with people and having career-like conversations where they map out where they want to go. Right. And so the ability to help individuals create a career path and then start executing on that career path that's impact. And then externally, like you said, is the ability to have an impact on customers. And so, in the spirit of innovation, and that's one of the things that we'll talk about here, it's helping customers think differently and helping them see, what's possible through innovation and through time. And that's massively impactful as well, because at the customer site, you're helping those organizations and then you're helping your champions as well. And so the people that kind of put the trust of their career in your hands as a startup, I mean, that's a big ask. And so it's something that I think that we as salespeople and we at Pigment specifically have to take seriously and be, very humble as we go about that. And so impact is important to me. My approach to leadership is and I formulated this opinion or this perspective over the years, and I call it my 5 N's, IN. And so I wholeheartedly believe that if there's nothing else I do, it's my 5 N's. And so again, these are my approach to both inside the company as well as outside the company. And so the first one of these is to inspire, how we go about inspiring people to think more, be more, do more. And so again, both inside and outside, the ability to inform. And so from a market perspective, how we inform our customers that there's another way to do things, and that like tried and proven for the last 15 to 20 years might not be the best thing for you. Inside the organization, it's how do we inform the sales team? How do we inform cross-functional leads that these are the things that we're working on? Influence is a big one. And so when you start thinking about a customer's ability to influence change in their own organization, like that's essentially what we're trying to do here. We're change agents. And so influence, if you think about, from a customer's perspective, people, process, and technology, like all three of those have to be aligned and working tightly with one another. And so how you influence one is going to have an impact on the other. And so taking that to heart is something that I impress upon my team. Innovate would be another one. And so how we innovate internally, that could be systems and processes, how we innovate hiring, how we start looking for people that can be additive in a way that's maybe different than that we've historically done it, but whether that be as a company, as a segment, and then how we take that innovation, both from a product perspective and put it into the hands of our customers. And so there's a bunch of sayings on this, but for me, it's at the end of the day, if I bring you innovative technology and you put it into broken processes, you're just made a broken process worse. And so that to me is top of mind as well. And then the last thing is going to be insulate. And so insulation for me is inside the company. We work in a fast paced world and there's a lot of noise coming at people. And so how can I insulate you as an individual from the noise so that you actually maximize productivity? You're able to have an impact in a different way. And then at the customers, it's the same thing. And so how can I help you as a customer insulate, whether it be you and your world or your leaders from the noise? And so that insulation should ideally provide more opportunity to make better use of your time and make informed decisions. And so I kind of take those 5 N's as guiding principles for me. And as a revenue owner, my job really is to generate revenue for the company. That to me is an outcome. That's a lagging indicator. The things that I just talked about are leading indicators. If I really double down on those things, the outcome will happen. It's not if, it's just when. And if I take that same approach to my customers, the same will happen. Like they'll get the reason why they're investing in Pigment, from evaluation through deployment is ideally for a better customer journey. And that starts again with innovating the way that organizations start evaluating, in this case, EPM, and how they look at the technology that's out there, how they engage with sales teams, how they engage with customer success teams. The list goes on and on.
That is an unfair career advantage because what I love about the 5 Ns is it doesn't matter if you're in a sales role. It doesn't matter if you're in a finance role. It doesn't matter if you're in an HR position, an operational role, like any position, those 5 Ns as your guiding principle will help you think about how do I become a more impactful player in my organization, which career growth, kind of like revenue, is a lagging indicator of the value that you've previously provided. I love that mindset. I love that approach. One of the things that we talked about recently on an episode was this idea of how, early in your career, you're just focused on being good at your job. You want to
Right.
deliver quality work. You want to build a great reputation. In sales, that's meeting your quota. In sales, that's
Right.
generating revenue. But as you move along in your career and you want to grow as a leader, you stop focusing more on me and you focus on we. How do I
Right.
impact the organization? How do I impact other people? I think that's what actually determines everyone's career kind of cap, if you will, is their ability and their focus, honestly, on the bigger picture, the organization, the the individuals that make it up and helping everyone accomplish their goals.
And that's hard to do, by the way. I think that just as individuals, you're wired for me. And then there's just an evolution that takes place, right? And so there's a journey and there's a identifying your why, and your why will inevitably change over time as you as an individual mature, as what drives you changes. And so like I think identifying with what your why is, and then for me personally, anchoring on those ends is just it's kind of become my North Star, and it keeps me grounded. And I love what you said. It's not about me, it's about we. And that just as a leader is not for everybody. And by the way, there's not a right or wrong there. I've got phenomenal people that I've partnered with over the course of my career that want us to stay as individual contributors, as get out there and help their customers, because the being in the front line is their impact. That's their why. I want to be so close to my customer and I want to help them through their own evolution and their own journey, that as I move away from that, I lose the ability to have that impact. So I don't know. There's no right or wrong. It's just not as has been said, know thyself.
One of the things that you said earlier that I want to come back to is being in a startup. And you talked
Yep.
about impact. And what I think about when I think about startups is I think about risk, but career growth, like all of the 5 Ns, innovation happens as a result of taking risks, right? To inspire people, to inform people, you're always taking risks and evaluating risks in your career. When you look at taking a risk, jumping into a new product, transitioning into a new industry or a new role that maybe you've never done before, how do you evaluate that? Like, how do you evaluate risk that helps you grow the organization, grow Pigment, and grow a career?
Yep. So there's a couple things. And so for my process, if it's just to kind of boil it down, is there's educated risk and then there's just gambling. And so I'd rather not gamble and I'd rather take an educated risk, and not that it will always work out in your favor, but you try to figure out what are the assumptions and the variables that you can get a better handle on in order to make a decision that has an element of risk in it. I think for me personally, it starts with the back channel. And by the way, this happens as a whether you're interviewing as an individual with any type of job, and then at a company level as well. And so you're kidding yourself if you don't think that LinkedIn is not only used for recruiters, but like the back channeling that takes place as you start looking to make a career move. And I did this, and I did it with Pigment. I contacted as many people I knew. They came out of the EPM space to tell me what's going on with this company. Is it legitimate? Tell me the good and the bad. And so I think that the amount of information that you have available, it's like shame on you if you're not taking advantage of that. Shame on you if you're not tapping your network to help you make an informed decision. Gartners of the world are another one for me. And so when you start looking online and you start reading the Gartner surveys for Pigment specifically about our customers and the amount of love that our customers are showing us, that's a validation point for me. And so when I look at opportunities, the technology is a key component of it. And so I'm just going to assume that I'm going to go work for a company where the technology does what it's supposed to do. And through my own back channeling and through my own reading and my own research and my own curiosity, I validate that. When you when you get customers that are absolutely fanatical about what you're doing and they're documenting that and they're documenting it online, that's just next level. And so that to me is a way to assess risk. And then the other for me is just the people themselves. And I'm at a point, and I think a lot of people are at a point right now. And I think there's this interesting thing that's happened in the last 3 or 4 years. And you saw this with quiet quitting and all of the other things that have taken place, is that people no longer have a tolerance for working in organizations that either don't appreciate you or working in organizations where you as an individual aren't heard or appreciated, or you're working in places that are just toxic. And I think that the way that I assess that risk is, again, not only through the back channel, but setting up as many interviews as I can. And so it almost seems counterintuitive because a lot of candidates that I speak with want to short circuit the interview cycle and they want to have as few conversations as they can, where it should be quite the opposite. I want to talk to as many people as I can because ideally I'm asking the same question and I'm getting the same answer. And so I'm validating. And then I want different perspectives. I want to talk to people in operations, in sales, in pre-sales, in post-sales, because I want to get, there's the life cycle of the customer, but there's the life cycle of the employee. And so 360-degree feedback, if you will, on what's happening in that particular company. I did that with Pigment. I did it a step further as well, given my role. I spoke with the investors and I asked them the same question that I was asking, Eleanor, our CEO, is, why Pigment? Why did you found Pigment? Why did you invest in Pigment? And so again, the ability to connect with individuals now is far greater than it's ever been. And shame on me or shame on you as an individual if you're not taking advantage of that. And so when you start coupling all of those things together, you get the opportunity to de-risk as much as humanly possible, because there's an element where people are just going to tell you what they know you want to hear. And being on the side that I'm on, candidates do that with me all the time. The truth always comes out though. And so I would rather just have a candid, honest conversation about whether it be the good, bad, and the ugly, or the thing that maybe you need to work on, or the thing that I need to work on. And like all of that just kind of comes through. And so those types of questions in that honest dialogue is just another way to de-risk.
I love that you do things differently when it comes to the interview process. You talked about how most candidates want to shorten that, whereas you want to lengthen it. You want to really dig in and understand. And to your point around earlier, you talked about how curious you were. I see that as a form of curiosity to say, well, if I'm going to evaluate this as an opportunity for my next steps in my career, I need to acquire as much information as I can to make an educated decision. And I see that even applying in the sales process. You want to be
Yes.
as curious as possible.
One thing on that, because I see this all the time too, is candidates that have multiple hops. And so the 1 year, the 1.5 year, followed by a 1 year and a 1.5 year. And there's always a reason for it. But at some point, there's got to be some level of accountability and ownership, which is some of that might be just unfortunate timing, but a lot of that is you just made a bad decision. And so, like, walk me through your criteria for making a decision. Like, how are you assessing risk? Because if I'm going to bring you on, I need to know how you go through making a decision. I need to know your assessment profile. And so when I see that over and over and over again, and then I hear a lack of ownership and a lot of lack of accountability, eh, like, no, thank you. It's just like, that's okay. Like, and I get
Yeah.
you're going to have you rationalize it all day long. I just don't buy it.
That makes a ton of sense. I love you talked about transparency, and that is so much of, I mean, that's the business that we're in, that we operate, and transparency is key. If you're going to bring someone in who's a fit to a position, they need to know to an extent where the bodies are buried. They need to know the
Right.
good, they need to know the bad, because most people aren't afraid of bad. It just needs to be the problems that they are excited to help fix.
Correct.
right? And you got to be able to have that conversation and just reach a different level of maturity and say,
Correct.
hey, this is not a perfect world. Here are the issues we're dealing with. We're hoping that you can help us solve them, right?
That's exactly right.
Is
Yeah.
that something you think you're equipped to do? Or is it something you want to do?
Right. Right. And
No,
transparency is the right word there. Like I said, it all comes out at one point or another. So you might as well just have the transparent dialogue right now.
absolutely. Sean, as you look forward on the Pigment journey and where y'all are going and what you're building, what are you most excited about?
Generic response is opportunity. And if I was to maybe dig into that a little bit more, we're a 4-year-old company, so we're still in startup phase. We've raised Series C through Iconic, so we're well funded. We're hiring phenomenal people. I I'll answer that in like one of the biggest surprises I've had since I've been here, Chad, is that the conversations that we're having with Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies, it's pinch yourself. Like as a 4-year-old company, we should not be having these types of conversations. And to me, that's opportunity. And it screams of a couple different things. I think number one, those organizations have been ready for disruption and for innovation for a long time. They're just not getting it from the current providers that are out there. And so that to me is extremely exciting that I can get a seat at the table with some of these companies that I've been at more mature companies and haven't been able to get at the table. And so the fact that I'm at a 4-year-old company and I'm having these conversations is just insane. So I think it speaks to the space and where we're at from an EPM perspective on the need for disruption and the need for innovation and the lack thereof. And then the second thing is I think it speaks volumes about our product and about the platform. And so again, I go back to Gartner and what our customers are saying out there. The amount of, I'll use the word noise in a positive manner right now, the amount of noise that Pigment is getting is impressive. And so again, I feel like I've got lightning in a bottle in the form of opportunity because I've got the next generation platform that is solving very complex problems for very big companies that are they're dying for change. They're asking for change. And so that to me is the opportunity. And so that's what I'm excited about kind of holistically. Another way that I would think about that is from an opportunity perspective is for me as an individual, selfishly in a global sales role is to get to work with and get to know customers around the world and get to know and get to work with, fellow employees around the world. And so everybody that I've had an opportunity to engage with thus far, just world class, no ego, super humble, high IQ, high EQ, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
That's amazing. You got me fired up talking about it. You said the customer noise. I call that applause. That's what I
Yeah,
call
that's
it.
good. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I'm going to use that, Chad. I'm stealing
Yeah,
that.
you can steal it. And I'll keep this on the recording, let everybody know you stole it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'll
Awesome.
get your royalty. I
There we
appreciate you.
go.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sure that'll be really lucrative for me.
Yeah, don't quit the day job quite yet, but
I
yeah.
won't. Don't you worry. Sean, so last question for you. You talked about having lightning in a bottle in terms of opportunities. I know that's a big focus for you right now, but just do you have any other sort of personal, big, hairy, audacious goal that you're going after? It doesn't necessarily have to be work related. Could be running a marathon, writing a book, anything like that, that really you're excited to share about.
I don't know if I'm excited to share. I can answer the question. Whether or not people care is a completely different thing. And so I love music. So we talked about, sports like wakeboarding and wake surfing and snowboarding. And I think that music for me does the same thing. It's just a phenomenal escape. I play, I'm not kidding you, one of the best air guitars you'll ever see in your world, Chad. And I can do air drumming really, really well too. The real instruments, not so good, not so good at all. And so I'd love to learn to play an instrument. I have a guitar over here in the corner that hasn't been picked up in about 10 years. And so that would be something. Equally important for me is I work for a French-based company and I had a challenge with my daughter on who could learn a second language fastest. I'm losing that bet very, very quickly. And so I'm trying to learn French. I've got Babbel, and just like the guitar, it's on my phone. I get a notification every day and I'm too busy to do anything about it. And so I probably put that one a little higher than the musical one, because there's probably a career advantage to me learning to speak another language. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go final answer, learn how to speak French. That's up there for me. I'm failing miserably. I'm curious, but not curious enough. Maybe
That's right.
that's where I got to go. Yeah.
That's right. Hey, Sean, those are awesome, awesome BHAGs. I share the desire to learn to play an instrument, but just don't know where I'm going to manufacture the time. This has been awesome. Thanks for joining the show today. If people want to reach out, where can they find you?
I'm at Sean.Brophy at gopigment.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Sean Brophy. You've got my name on here. And so you can reach me one of those two places. And I respond to just about everything. So feel free to reach out. Let me know what you're thinking and how I can possibly help.
Awesome. Thanks again, Sean. This has been a treat.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Wherever you're consuming this, if it's YouTube, if it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed. We have a lot more amazing guests on the way, a lot more great content. We're doing our best to bring you value and have fun while we do it. And we really want this to be a career advantage, listening to this show, and we want you to enjoy it. So it means a lot. Make sure you're subscribed for what's to come. And also, if you're up for it, it would mean a lot if you leave us a like, a comment, a rating, a review, whatever platform you're on. That really helps, and it gets us fired up when we see those. So I appreciate you guys. Find us on LinkedIn. I'm Blake Bozarth. My co-host Chad Pyke with a Y. Would love to connect with you there. Have an awesome day. See you next time. Peace.